Hey there, here's a quick note before we begin. You can support the podcast by downloading, sharing, or checking with my favorite hiking gear at justhike.com. Let's hit the trail. Hey everyone, welcome to the Just Hike podcast. My name is Melanie Michaelchuk and I am your host. Today we have Beth Abel, who is the author of a published book called Reflections of the Appalachian Trail. Now, is it Appalachian or Appalachian?
It's Appalachian, Melanie. It's Appalachian.
Okay.
Appalachian.
Okay.
The locals, it matters to them.
Yes, I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does. So it's Reflections on the Appalachian Trail, One Woman's Journey of Faith. The book is available on Amazon in hardcover ebook and now in Audible as well. Very exciting.
Yes.
And Beth is the owner of Life Maps Coaching and the author of Life Maps Workbook, Lifestyle Coaching, Goal Setting Journey for Women. So Beth, tell me, what first inspired you to section hike the Appalachian Trail?
Melanie, there was a persistent despair in my life at age 47. So that was many years ago. And it was due to multiple problems. And the book brings that forth. Many readers have told me how much they appreciate how transparent I was in the writing of the book, because it makes it more powerful as a message to you individually because of that. And I share about the multiple problems that brought me this place of despair at age 47. One of the many problems was just addressing the empty nest life transition. In my life, that was a big deal. And I realized by happenstance that what I really needed was an escape adventure, some way to get away from all of these problems that I, at age 47, was just beginning to grapple with the truth that we human beings can't control everything.
Go figure.
Control my problems. I could not fix myself or fix my loved ones or fix this world. And as a helping professional, I had fallen into that problem as well. So I was grappling with all those truths, and I just wanted to escape. I wanted an adventurous escape to get an experience of Beth in this world in some other fashion. And we had a family vacation with our high school age children, and we left Austin, Texas for the East Coast for the first time for me. And as we traveled from the north part of the East Coast down south, I just kept running across those old Rand McNally maps that had, they're huge and they have all kinds of information in them. I love maps. And I was the navigator on the trip, and I kept seeing on the map the Appalachian Trail, the National Appalachian Scenic Trail, I think is the official title. And I finally just said, I've got to find out more about what this is. It's here, state after state, as we head south.
Oh, wow.
And that's how I got hooked on the Appalachian Trail.
You're a curious person, just like I am. Yeah. Something pops up in whatever realm we're in, and it's like, what is that? I need to learn more about that.
Yes, and I was an armchair quarterback and reading about so many people that had written down and made a book out of their experience. And after reading books for about 6 months, I was really getting very educated on what the Appalachian Trail is, how it was created, which that alone is an exciting thing. And that information, that history of how it was created is in my book. I just finally got the guts up to tell my husband, I'm going to hike that thing. I'm going to hike that 2,000-mile trail.
What did he think of that when you said that?
He thought that was pretty crazy.
I bet.
I came out of nowhere. I mean, we do live like a 2-day journey from the Appalachian Trail, so it wasn't a small issue. And obviously I couldn't hike it all at one time because I still had life, family life, work, world of the life. So I had to figure out a way to do it that I could keep living my lifestyle at the same time, get out there and get that escape adventure that oftentimes is the beginning of the Lord working in our lives in a new, change-filled way.
That's amazing. So how did you do it? So you said that you were still working, you lived 2,000 miles away. So how did you do it?
How did you start?
Well, Melanie, how I started was I found a couple of friends that were just as crazy as me that lived in Austin, and they were doing volunteering and Girl Scouting with me. And we caught the bug together. Oh, let's plan a trip, a 2 week trip of three women going out from Austin, Texas to hike on the Appalachian Trail for a couple of weeks. And so several months of preparing for a trip such as that got me started in a way that my husband was comfortable with me being out in a new adventure where he had no part in it. And obviously, that was in 1997. That was before cell phones. That was before debit cards. I mean, that I was carrying a cashier's checks and a long distance calling card for when
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I could find a payphone. Definitely going out into a wilderness setting and having hiking partners was an important part of it, of course, for both me and for my husband's well-being about the trip. So that's how I got started. And it was interesting because after the 2 weeks, I had caught the bug. But my
Really?
other two, my friends that hiked with me said, never again. I just don't want to do this. So it's not for everybody.
The now, if you didn't have your ladies, like your connection in the Girl Scouts, I imagine there was probably nobody else who would be interested. Do you
You are
think?
on target. It's
Yeah.
really hard to find a
Yeah.
hiking partner. I actually ended up finding eventually my hiking partner for out of the 20 hiking trips. I hiked with my friend from North Carolina, about 13 of them,
Oh, wow.
maybe 15.
Yeah.
And her name is Marsha Rowland.
Okay.
And so we didn't see each other all year long, but we had lots to talk about. We would get together every year in September because that's a nice cool time to be out of Texas and be in the beauty of the Appalachian Mountains where it was cooler temperature and beautiful time with the fall colors coming and such. So all my hikes happened in September, or 90% of them in September, and I would meet Marsha Rowland out on the trail. And your next question is going to be, how did you find Marsha Rowland?
Yes. How did you
Yes,
find her?
it was an adventure of itself. So this was just in 1990. I started really looking in 1999 for a hiking partner that would do this with me every year. And so I found an Appalachian Trail magazine that came out from the organization, from the nonprofit organization. And I think it was called Trailway News. It no longer exists, but they had the old-fashioned classified ads
Oh, wow.
in the back. And in the back of this magazine, people were putting out an ad for hiking partners because I wasn't the only one that had trouble finding a hiking partner. And so I put an ad out with email. Email had just come out. And I got a response. I mean, it said something along the lines of, I'm looking for a hiking partner, female hiking partner to hike in September with me a couple of weeks. 10 miles a day is my average pace. And I got 30 to 35 responses from all over the
Really?
nation
Wow.
of women that were interested in doing it. So that's how I got started. Marsha Rowland was on that list. It took me a while
Wow.
to find her, but she stuck.
So how do you vet somebody? Like I remember my first kind of group led hike. I put the group together. I had a couple of people show up and it was like, how do you, because it's scary meeting somebody, it's dating, right?
Yeah,
Meeting somebody for the first time, but
yeah,
you're meeting, like in my case, I met this lady at a trailhead and we were going walking into the wood. You don't know who this person is.
you
She
don't.
brought her big dog with her.
Yeah, she
And
was
we
scared too.
she was scared too.
Yeah,
And it's just so interesting. So how did you feel? And
yeah.
how did you, let's say, vet the person that you were meeting? So tell me about that.
That's the main thing that's happening here is you're getting
Yes.
outside your comfort zone. You're hiking a trail that you haven't hiked because it's close to home and you enjoy it, the beauty of it. And so you hike it several times a week all year long. No, you're hiking an area you've never been before
Right.
and You're hoping the maps are accurate and all the resource information you collected is legitimate. And you got to have a hiking partner that you can count on. So you're outside your comfort zone here. And I would want to say, first and foremost, that's when we let the Lord work the most in our lives, is when we're outside our comfort zone.
Right.
I will start with this self-effacing statement. I didn't know what the heck I was doing in 1997. I made a lot of mistakes. Obviously, the women that went with me were friends, but they weren't really interested in doing this over and over again. And I found out I was, and they found out they were not interested. But from there, I went to that list and started vetting, to your point, and I made the wrong choice. And I think this is very typical of people, male or female. I made the choice of picking two women, one from Florida and one from New Jersey, to hike with that were experienced. I decided, oh, I'm going to be an experienced hiker because I'm going to hike with experienced hikers. These women had each hiked somewhere around, I would say 250, 300 miles on the Appalachian Trail. And they were avid hikers. They were very experienced at long distance hiking, not day hikes, long distance backpacking and hiking.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to get this experience just by being around them. How silly is that? And it was the wrong choice. And it took me 2 hiking trips with them to realize how bad a choice that was. And that was one of the key moments in my life, is coming to that reckoning. And so what happened as I realized that I made that bad choice, which I was in a very vulnerable place on the Appalachian Trail when it dawned on me. Make it the short story right now short, I got off the trail with some help from strangers, left those experienced hikers on the trail because they were not a good choice for me, and went home and recuperated. I'm lucky I didn't get physically damaged, injured from it. And then I turned over the decision of a good profile to use for vetting my hiking partner. I turned that over to prayer. And I started formulating, what is it that Beth needs to have a really good experience out there every year for a couple, 2-3 weeks. And on the top of the list was somebody that I could talk to about spiritual growth and about faith, and somebody that would be fun to share this growth with. We would have fun times as well as spiritual growth times.
Nice.
And that's what led me to Marsha Rowland.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Sometimes you have to go through, unfortunately, sometimes you have to go through those experiences to learn what you really need and want.
Yeah.
You mentioned the part about lucky you weren't physically damaged, right?
Yes.
Sometimes it's pace.
Oh, definitely. That was the key for me.
Yeah.
I'd asked them to move at a pace that I could handle, and they basically just said, yes, we'll do that. And then they did not do that.
Right.
And unfortunately, we were in a very bad situation when that all became clear. But that may be another question about my experiences on the trail and about the book. I'd love to get in depth on that question.
Absolutely, for sure. Let's go back to the Appalachian Trail. Take us back to your very first section of the hike. What do you remember most?
That's such a fun question to answer. We intended to be in Damascus, Virginia, right on the Virginia-North Carolina border, where we hiked south, which really puts you right on. Okay, right here is the Virginia-North Carolina border.
Okay. And so let me just mention, for those of you who are listening, Beth has a map of the Appalachian Trail behind her. And so we'll do our best to describe it. But if you want to see what she's pointing out, jump over to our YouTube channel and have a listen to the podcast or watch the podcast on there. I just want to throw that out there. Yeah. All right. So you're pointing on the map to the border.
On the map, and the Appalachian Trail runs from northern Georgia all the way up to central Maine.
Gotcha. Okay.
and it's over 2,000 miles long. And so out of my reading back in 1997, I chose the great trail-friendly town of Damascus, Virginia, to start this hike of the three of us. And it's right here at an interesting location. It's on Damascus is on the Appalachian Trail, right on the border of Virginia in North Carolina. But it's actually at the juncture of where North Carolina and Tennessee are next to each other. And
Okay.
actually, the Appalachian Trail follows the border between North Carolina and Tennessee. So you're 1 foot in Tennessee and 1 foot in North Carolina,
Oh, how fun. Yep.
all through this section headed south out of Damascus, Virginia. Eventually, several hundred miles south is Smoky Mountain National Park, and the trail runs right through the center of Smoky Mountain National Park.
Okay. Now, let me ask you a quick question. Did you fly there or drive there?
We drove.
Drove?
We
Okay.
drove out there. It takes about 2 days to get there
Okay.
from Austin, Texas. And we started hiking south. And one of the women had a background as a nurse, an RN.
Uh-huh.
And these were both they were seasoned campers, but they weren't really backpackers, nor was I. I wasn't a backpacker either. So we get out on the trail, and about the second day out on the trail, it's raining, Melanie, all the time. And this is in June. This is one of the reasons I no longer ever hike long distances in the summertime. I wait for September. But it was beautiful. The rhododendrons were blooming all up and down the trail.
If you're enjoying this episode of Just Hike, here's how you can help support the show. First, be sure to follow, download, and share this episode. It helps more adventurers like you and me discover the podcast and helps keep this journey going strong. And if you're gearing up for your next hike or just curious about my favorite outdoor gear, be sure to check out my Amazon affiliate page. I've listed all the items I actually use, from hiking shoes to trail snacks. You'll find them at justhike.com. Every purchase through the link helps support the podcast at no extra cost to you. Thanks again for being here with me on the trail. Let's go back to our show.
It was gorgeous, but it was raining all the time. And it really hit our spirits. It lowered our spirits just for the rain issues. And then one of the women got sick, and she just felt like she had a flu. It was the woman that was the nurse. And finally, I started asking her some questions about her symptoms. And Melanie, she told me she hadn't been drinking any water.
Uh-oh.
And I started challenging her about that. And she said, I just don't want to drink any water because I don't want to have to pee in the woods. And so that was the beginning of getting a virus, getting the flu, was she just hadn't consumed enough water. I'm telling you this because the next day, about the third day of the trip, she was so sick that she really felt she had to get off the trail.
Wow.
And we were in the middle of a national forest. There wasn't a town close by. It was trail miles. It was at probably 10 miles to get off the trail and even have a road crossing. And then it would be a matter of getting somebody to hitchhike, allow us to hitchhike and get a ride into town where she could see a doctor. So the three of us sat down and discussed this, and the other two women decided that the patient needed to go, of course, and she needed one of us to go with her to help her because she could get even weaker. So the second woman went with the patient, and I was to remain on the trail, taking care of 3 tents, a whole bunch of backpacking equipment, all
Oh my gosh.
that they didn't want to leave behind, didn't want to take with them because they didn't have the strength to carry it all.
Oh, wow.
And so I ended up in an area called Bear Tree Gap.
Okay.
Bear Tree Gap. Get that picture in your mind when it gets dark.
By yourself with 3
By
tents.
yourself. Yeah. That was my big moment, unexpected, unplanned, but I got through the night by myself, taking care of the campsite. And when I got up in the morning, I felt like a veteran backpacker.
Gee.
Yeah. So they came back later, and we ended up from there on doing day hikes because she just wasn't feeling so weak. But that's the beauty of backpacking and long distance hiking is you got a lot of choices of how you're going to do it if you think about it that way.
Absolutely. And you know what? Sometimes your plan B becomes your plan A. Right? You have to have that flexibility to be able to make those changes because sometimes they're just necessary.
And
Yeah.
isn't that about life? That's
Yep.
how life is too.
Absolutely. Sometimes those obstacles, you just have to deal with them, right?
Yeah, you do. You have to
Yeah.
get all the way down to plan Z.
Sometimes. Were there any sections of the trail that were
Yes.
particularly meaningful or transformative for you?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
I want to be sure to capture my notes because I have given this some really important forethought.
Okay.
Yes, my favorite section of the trail, or transformative in as well as favorite, is the White Mountains of New Hampshire, the
Okay.
Presidential Mountain Range. Some people know that mountain range because they've heard of Mount Washington. It's on that area of the Appalachian Trail. I went there in September of 2001, and I actually was packing my bags to get on the plane from Austin to Manchester, New Hampshire on September 11th
Oh, wow.
when the Twin Towers were destroyed in New York City.
Yes.
And of course, all the airports were closed down. And I was to be meeting the two hiking partners that I no longer wanted to hike with in New Hampshire at a cabin, a special hostel. Pinkham's Notch is what it's called. It's run by the Appalachian Mountain Volunteer Club, Appalachian Mountain Hiking Volunteer Club. And of course, we couldn't meet that day, nor could I get on a plane. So I had to wait 2 days to meet up with these women, and the one from New Jersey and from Florida. And once we got started, I realized how beautiful that section is. But I allowed those women to choose that location to hike, and that was only my third hiking trip, actually. So I was still very much of a novice, and these women were very experienced. But they'd not hiked this section, and they really wanted to get it done. And so I allowed myself to be misled.
Oh,
And I did not have the experience nor the stamina or strength to hike that's the hardest section of the Appalachian Trail. It's known by many as the hardest section because it's so remote. Maine is equally difficult, but this is one of the more renowned sections of the Appalachian Trail that is extremely challenging. A lot of above tree line sections where major weather changes happen very quickly. And I was having a lot of problems because I couldn't keep up with them. But one of the reasons I loved that area so much was the beauty in September of all the wonderful colors of fall that we don't have in Austin, Texas.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I loved that. And I loved the community. It was my first big experience of how there is a great fellowship and community of people hiking on the Appalachian Trail that really care about each other, truly do, because you really are depending on one another when you're out in the wilderness setting like that. So people reach out and take care of each other like you don't usually experience in city living or any kind of community. It's exceptional that way. It's going to summer camp, and you have your trail name and or camp name, and everybody else does too, and you really bond in this very special way. That's what it feels like to be a part of the Appalachian Trail community when you get out there long distance hiking or backpacking. And so several days of enjoying the beauty of the fellowship and the surroundings, but really realizing I could not keep up with these women and they weren't going to change. And what made this such a profound experience for me was I reckoned with that truth. I did not have the ability to do what they could do, and they weren't going to accommodate me, and they weren't invested in the fact that I could get injured. They weren't concerned about that. And I had to take responsibility for me.
Absolutely.
For
Yes.
me. And
Yeah.
so that was getting out way outside my comfort zone to do that. And I wrestled with it for about 10 days. And I ended up on top of Mount Lafayette, which is a major, like 2,000 feet elevation gain in a like 4 miles. It was quite a straight up feat. And I had told them, no, I don't think I can do this at the speed you're doing it. And if you don't change, I'm leaving the trail. And they didn't change. And that I the following night, I spoke to the Lord. I woke up in the night in this three-sided shelter open to the weather, and I started praying about how bad I felt. Now, the picture of this situation is it's like 3 in the morning. I'm on top of a mountain in a shelter, three-sided shelter, open to the weather. It's still raining, and it is a rainy, cold night, and there's 5 or 6 strangers sleeping next to me. Everybody's sleeping together. And I sit up in my bedroll and I start praying silently about this. And the Lord says to me, write it down, what's going on here. And as I wrote it down, I wrote down the prayer, it became very clear to me, I have to take care of me first and trust the Lord second. And that's where I'm going to go. So when I got up the next morning, we hiked down to a full-blown, like 25-bed cabin that's out there in that open, above tree line section of the Appalachian Trail. And at that cabin, they have, people were coming in, paying for their accommodation, their lodging, and meals as well. And so the evening meal, I stand up at this family meal style, and I say to the group of probably 12 hikers or so, I am leaving the trail tomorrow, and I'm going back to my home in Texas. And I need somebody who knows the local terrain to show me how to get off this trail so that I can go get a bus and get by bus over to the Manchester airport and use my airline ticket I already have to head back to Austin. And it was a very scary thing to own that I can't do it. It was really hard, but it empowered me to live by that spirit center instead of living by the cultural expectations that I should never expose the fact that I can't do this. My hiking partners could not believe that I did that.
Wow.
Months later, they still didn't believe that I'd left them. But I will tell you, profound. There is no other thing but a God wink that happened here. After dinner, these 2 women, one of them probably in her 60s, the other one in her 40s, lived in a local town at the foot of the mountain. And they came up to me and said, we live nearby and we'd be happy to show you off the trail and help you get your transportation arrangements to get to the airport. They showed me off the trail. We walked together all the way to the foot of the mountain. The older woman took me to her home and let me stay with she and her husband overnight in their home. And they even had a hot tub. How special is that? And they fed me and they got me on a bus the next day. And that's what we call trail angels. Those are trail
Absolutely.
angels. Those are trail angels. That's a
Yes.
very common in the hiking world. And
Yes.
that's what I experienced with trail angels. And so everything about my hiking escape adventure had
Uh-huh.
transformed from that day forward in my life. The trail experiences transformed the whole of my life from there on.
Wow. What a profound experience. And
Yes.
while you were sharing it, made me think self-care, right? And
Yeah,
taking care of yourself first rather than either trying to keep up to people or doing what other people expect you to do.
exactly.
And really just coming to terms with what do you need to take care of yourself. And,
And have a
sometimes,
voice about it.
yeah, and having a voice about it. Absolutely. Absolutely. I find, I don't know if men have that same issue, like that expectation, or, but I know for women, quite often we'll try to take care of everybody else first
Yeah.
and put ourselves last. And it reminds me of that, the analogy of the air masks coming down in the airplane. You got to put on your air mask first before you put on the air mask for other people. And as a matter of fact, I was on a flight a few weeks ago and it said, ladies, put on your mask first before you help your husband. Oh,
Yeah. And Melanie, this is why I love training teenage Girl Scouts on how to do backpacking and long distance hiking, because you just don't do this and without learning a lot about how to take care of yourself first.
yes.
You
And
can
what do
help
you,
the team do what the
yeah,
team is doing in your hiking group, but you got to take care of yourself first. You can't have somebody else, you can't expect somebody else to carry your backpack for you. You can't be carrying everybody else's backpack. To take care of yourself first. It's a
that's right.
great method of training up teenage girls in self-reliance.
Beautiful. And another thing is no one else is going to take care of your feet because no one knows how your feet feel.
Yeah. Yes.
Nobody
That's right.
knows. You have to
Yeah,
take
you
ownership
got
of
to
it.
pay attention to that message. Exactly.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. So you are coming up to, or you're at the 10-year anniversary of completing the trail.
Yes.
When did that happen and what does it feel like to be 10 years later? You completed the entire trail.
That is a really good question. I love that you brought that up. Initially, when I finished the trail in 2015, I felt very confused. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself from here now on. I knew my husband and I were recently both 90% retired in our careers, but I had a lot of life that I still wasn't sure how this was all going to come together. So I felt a lot of confusion. But over the last 10 years, I have continually just taken it back to deeper and deeper conversations with the Lord about the purpose in my life. And despite the increasing body limitations that aging brings, because that's true, my spirit is really soaring because I took to heart the challenge that the Lord laid ahead of me to write this book. I had never really written something so self-effacing, transparent about my life journey. And so it was hard for me to choose to do that. And so when I did that post hike, post finishing the trail, I argued with the Lord from 2015 till at least 2020.
Oh, wow.
And I'm good at arguing about how I can't do that. I can't do that. That would be embarrassing. That would put me in a vulnerable place. I can't do it. And I finally listened, which has been an ongoing challenge for me to listen. But I finally listened, and the pandemic helped me because there wasn't anything else happening in in a lot of ways in the world. And I was able to come here to my Angel Fire, New Mexico home, and we just hunkered down here and enjoyed the beauty of nature here. And once I started writing, I got it written. But what happened was that brought me purpose, a daily purpose. I don't, at my age of 75, I still see many years of purpose just talking about these issues that we're talking about right now. And that gives me lots of meaning and purpose about how I can share the Lord's light and bring peace into people's lives. Just opening up a doorway they may not even see is right there in front of them.
Beautiful. And I appreciate you sharing because I think your message is so important for all of us to hear. Now,
Thank you.
let's move on to what is your trail name and how did you earn it?
You know what? My trail name is Spirit, and I gave myself that trail name. So there must have been something going on way back when I first started hiking back in 1997, hiking on the Appalachian Trail. there must have been some part of me that knew, Beth, you're getting ready for some major spiritual changes and meaning in your life. So just name yourself Spirit and be honest about it. And so I never changed it. I kept it at Spirit.
Nice. I think that's beautiful. Now, you mentioned the first two hiking partners that you had, right? You mentioned those two, the two ladies who it didn't work out so well, but you learned a lot from it. And you also mentioned, your other hiking partner. I forget what her name was. What was her name?
Marcia Rowland.
Very good. How did you meet her? And tell me a little bit about that.
Marcia Rowland, I met her through that classified ad. She was on
Okay.
that group of 30, 35 women that responded to the classified ad with an email. When I
Right.
got off the mountain up in New Hampshire and got home and recuperated from realizing I couldn't hike with two advanced, experienced hikers that wouldn't slow down, I went back to that list and I already had a profile laid out of what I was listening for to vet people. And Marcia Rowe came up loud and clear. Marcia Rowe had a few hundred miles done. She had solo hiked in 2000 and she was intending to do a through hike. And then her brother decided to go home and left her solo hiking. And so she kept on for a while, and then one day she realized this isn't very fun anymore. At my age, she's the same age as I am. She's 6 months older. And she just went home and found my classified ad and started talking about to meet up with me. Her trail name is, so
Smasher.
when you read the book, you're going to hear about Smasher and Spirit on the trail.
Oh, cute.
And there are lots of trail stories that Smasher and Spirit share. But Smasher is just a profoundly wonderful person. She's very much of a Appalachian Trail culture kind of person. I say that because she's grew up in North Carolina. Then she also spent some time in New York State near the trail. She's just been around the trail a lot. And she's the kind of person that is fun to be on a trail with day after day because she loves nature. She loves the Lord's presence in nature. She can tell, she can look at scat, animal poop,
Uh-huh. Yep,
and
yep.
she can look at tracks and she can pretty much identify those where those came from. And we create trail stories around what we think happened when we look at things like that. Or she can identify the trees and the flora and fauna of the area all up and down the trails. That was something that this Texas girl just didn't have. And sharing several years of hiking with her and her life unfolding as my life was unfolding, I would enjoy these 2 weeks, 3 weeks under this giant flora and fauna of the forest, the Appalachian Trail. It's like a cathedral in there. You can't see the sky
Oh,
most of
wow.
the time. And so by the time I got 2 or 3 weeks into it, I was starting to get hungry and missing and feeling claustrophobic in the forests because I grew up in the big sky country of Texas and I
Right.
had to
Yeah.
get back out there and see that big blue sky again. But I shared all that with her. So we have a very deep bond spiritually and also through these hiking experiences.
That's wonderful. So it sounds like you found a good trail partner for you.
I sure did. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
We hiked the
great.
same, we had hiked the same pace. That was something I really learned the hard way, but in any kind of really deep relationship, you got to find that you're on the same pace.
Yes, absolutely. Now, how did you balance life back home with returning to the trail and back and forth? How did you
Well,
juggle all that?
you are really a master at good questions. You really are. And that good question speaks to the heart of why I wrote the book. And it speaks to the heart of what I call a spiritual pilgrimage. That's what I experienced was a spiritual pilgrimage. And a spiritual pilgrimages shape our lives if we let them. They've been around since 90 AD. In fact, I just helped with a group of Girl Scouts who hiked the Camino de Santiago Trail in Spain.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
and they did a 7-day hike of that trail. And I'm so excited for them because I know they went on a spiritual pilgrimage. They got started on experiencing what a spiritual pilgrimage is. So anyway, at first, yes, I tried to balance, Melanie, work and the rest of my life, my family life, my community life, and whatever. I even tried so hard to keep a balance about it that in the early years, I would set up certain clients that I was concerned about and set aside a day that I didn't hike and sit in a motel and talk to clients over a phone.
Oh, wow.
So I could give them some session time with me and keep them moving on their work. And then I began to realize that's not really helpful to them or to me to contaminate this part of my life. But I'm showing you there was a journey here that was happening about how to take this in and let it impact my life. So I began to grasp how the hiking trips became a positive impact on my life, on my work that I was doing, on my family, on my friends, on me. And what was happening is I was coming home and I was telling these true stories and about trail experiences and how it impacted me. And that then just inundated the lives that I could touch in all facets of my life. And so I just quit seeking balance. What I began to see is this is the center. This is the center of my life, is the spiritual pilgrimage. And it flows from there into how I can be impactful to others, but also how I can live who I'm supposed to be and the purpose of my life. So I no longer think about it as a balance between work and life. I think about it, the hiking trips as being a way to help, sort of like a multivitamin, keep remembering this is how it's supposed to be in the whole of your life, Beth. This is how it's supposed to, you're supposed to feel happy about living because you've been blessed with so many great things to be grateful for, and share that with others. And that's going to be a reason for living.
I think we put a lot of stress on ourselves trying to juggle everything and try to keep everything intermingled versus, honoring and respecting that time to just go and experience whatever you need to experience.
Yes. Yeah. It's
And then bring those stories back,
yeah.
almost like the
Yeah.
hero's journey, right? The hero goes away, has their experience, and then they come back and they share that experience with their community. They're not sharing that experience via text message and cell phone and everything else while they're on that journey. They do the journey and then they come back.
Yes, that is transformative. It's
Yes.
not an either or. It's not, life is not about, life is about the journey. It's what we're saying.
Yes.
And a trail analogy that I'll throw out there because the hikers will resonate, that are watching this will resonate with them. It's like a switchback trail. You're not going straight up the mountain. You're going back and forth on these switchback trails, trying to get to the top. And I've got one whole chapter in there in my book that I call False Summits, where you get to the top and there's no top there. There's still more to go.
There's still more to go. Isn't that so true of life? There are so many false summits there. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You think it's going to be this transformative experience when you get to the summit, but the summit's not there.
The summit's not there. You have more to do.
Still
And it's the design of the destination is not ours to create. It's not ours. We don't own this.
So you've mentioned the book several times. What inspired you to write it? I know it was a God wink, right? But what can readers expect? Like me, like the Reader's Digest version, or like the synopsis of what can readers expect through your book?
I've always been one that keeps a journal. So when I was on the trail, I was journaling, and a lot of pieces of not just on the trail, but in daily living, I took things that I learned as I was in that life experience and kept them. I kept a stack of all that stuff, and I inserted pieces of it into the book so that readers could see the transformative developmental process unfolding. I believe so many people give up on a spiritual journey or a faith journey because they get lost and they can't figure out. They're looking for a guide. They're looking for some direction. And the best direction is to listen to yourself. So that's where I believe I've captured a great ability to share that, how I listen to myself. And they're going to get some really solid help on answering their own questions because they'll see me walk through that very same journey specifically. The way the book is put together is every one of the 20 hiking trips are described in terms of the year it happened in my life, where I was on the trail, what was happening in the whole of my life that year, what was happening on the trail itself in terms of me and who I was hiking with and who we ran into and what we learned from other people. So you multiply that by 20 hiking trips, you very quickly get to see the author's progression and regression and relearning. And so you see a process unfold through the narrative of those 20 hiking trips. In addition to that, there are 40 devotionals that have a scripture reference, then have a life lesson that references that scripture, and then trail stories that connect with all of that.
Wow, that sounds
So,
so, I
so,
wish
so it's
I,
pulling it all together, and it's punctuating certain events that happened over the 20 years to write a devotional on. But at the same time, it's saying there's no map for this, folks. It's just a journey. It's just a journey. So I think it's a magnificent description of what a spiritual pilgrimage might look like.
it's interesting that 2020 happened and you had that time
Yes.
to be able to put all that together.
Yeah.
That's
It's a
beautiful.
God wink again. It's a God.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. What part of your AT journey was the hardest to write about?
I'm glad you're asking that question. I didn't really discover how hard it was until I just about finished writing the whole book. But I challenged myself to write a devotional about forgiveness. Forgiveness is one of the toughest things for us to mature in. It's a lifelong journey in itself, forgiveness. And so I was writing this. I'll tell you a trail story. It started with in about 2003, so about the fifth hike in. I'm feeling pretty confident in how well I can hike, Smasher and me. And we're out in northern Virginia and we end up in this hiking hostel. And again, it's September and there's very few people out there in September. That's the beauty of hiking in September. You really got the trail to yourself.
Nice. I'll remember that.
Yeah, and in this hiking experience, that particular event at this hiking hostel in Parisburg, Virginia, we were all settled into this nice cabin that a Catholic church has that they host for hikers coming through town that are on the Appalachian Trail. And right after dinner, in walks this man, a good 10 years older than us. Now, he was definitely in his late 60s. And his trail name was Medicare Charlie. And Medicare Charlie comes in with his backpack on, and we can see that he's drove a car in, and he's parked next to us. And he comes in and he starts being really braggadocious about what a great hiker he is. He's already hiked most of the Appalachian Trail, and we're just trying to be gracious. We're just trying to share the hostel with him. And I'm doing pretty good about it until he starts bad mouthing Girl Scouts. And that just took me down. He starts talking about how great Boy Scouts are, and I've camped with a lot of Boy Scouts, so I've got a lot of experience about their camping skills. And he starts bragging about how he was a Boy Scout master and how great he was at that and how great the Boy Scouts are and how poorly Girl Scouts are about being able to be backpackers or really good hikers. And I just had to walk out of the room. I couldn't take it. I didn't want to argue with him, but I was not happy with this Medicare Charlie. And he says he's waiting on these two guys to meet up with him that he hiked with before, and they don't show up that night. The next morning, they still haven't arrived, and he goes and talks to them, I guess on probably a payphone, and he comes back and he's really mad because they have dumped him. They're not coming. They're dumping. I'm going to go anyway. So he leaves in his car. He says, I'm going out, and I know they think I can't do it by myself, but I'm going to go anyway. And we said, we're really kind of concerned about you being out there by yourself like that. Are you going to be okay? Yeah, I'm going to be okay. Just get off my back. And he was really argumentative. So 2 days later, Smasher and I are hiking down this trail near the hiking hostel, not far away, kind of in a rapid day hike back to the hiking hostel. And we see some figure laid down against a tree with a backpack next to him, and it's Medicare Charlie.
Uh-oh.
And we'd stop to see if he needs our help because he's clearly not well. And he says, no, I don't need any help. And I said, well, let's get you up. He's, no, I'm just going to lay here. And we realized he didn't have his wits all about him. He's grumbling and griping and mad at it, because he's really mad at himself. And now I can feel the compassion coming out of me towards him. And Smasher feels the same way. And so we decide Smasher's going to run and get the emergency responders from Pearisburg. She's got a good 3 miles to run down the trail to get back to town, maybe more than that. And then they're going to have to get back to him because he can't move, really. He doesn't think he can even lean on me or us and get down the trail. And he doesn't want to. He doesn't think he needs to move. So I'll stay with him. So I sat there and listened to him gripe and groan and really badmouth our attempts to try to help him for over 2 hours until they finally got back. And so they took him to the hospital, and we thought we'd never see him again. We were really glad we did what we did. The next morning, he walks into the hiking hostel, has checked out of the hospital. They said he was severely dehydrated, and it was a good thing we found him and got him some help.
Wow.
And he said, thank you. I'm so sorry for the way I treated you. Thank you. And it was very profound to see him humble himself like that. And so then, as I'm writing this forgiveness devotional about trying to forgive the two hikers that would not slow down so that I could hike with them in the Presidential Mountain Range in New Hampshire, I'm trying to get my words out about forgiveness and how hard it was for me to ever forgive them. And then I realized that really I was in the position that Medicare Charlie was in. When I first met Medicare Charlie, I thought I could do anything.
Oh, yeah.
And I made everybody want to accommodate me at my pace of things. And then I wouldn't have to be stuck with having to forgive them because they didn't want to accommodate me. So this whole thing of forgiveness is a big piece of our spiritual growth that I think, I'm going to quote somebody else recently who really struck me solid, and when he said, it doesn't matter if we're working on psychological growth or we're working on emotional growth or whatever kind of growth it is, all growth is spiritual growth. All growth is really spiritual growth. And that forgiveness devotional was the hardest thing for me to write in the book, but it was the best one.
For me, I take that as it's more forgiveness for yourself.
Yeah,
right?
It's just forgiveness for the human condition.
Exactly.
We're all there.
Yeah, we're all there.
We're
Yeah.
all there.
Yeah. We all do the best that we can in the situation that we're in.
Yeah.
And at that moment in time, you thought you were doing the best that you could in that moment in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hanging on to anger and resentment, you just don't like them because they put you in this position.
Right. But it's not them.
It's not them.
It's not them.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were just going their pace, and it just wasn't the same pace as yours.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just don't Sometimes we just don't mesh.
We
And
just don't mesh. And it's going to get used. The fact that we don't mesh is probably going to get, the Lord's going to use that too.
What key message or takeaway do you hope readers gain from your story?
I think a lot of people don't get it, that having a spiritual life that you feed, you nourish it, you discipline it. A lot of people look at that and they go, oh, how boring, how dry, how dull. I'd never want to keep, they think immediately of something like a monk, that kind of stereotype.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
When you start talking about faith growth or spiritual growth, people have a misconception of it for themselves. And they blow it off as uninteresting and not helpful. I think that's a general condition that we humans get stuck in sometimes, especially when we're in important life transitions. We minimize how much spiritual well-being can help us in a life transition. And so I want people to know how happy I am and how much fun I have and how much joy I get out of adventures I choose to do. Because I know that there's purpose in what I'm doing because of my intention to stay in a close relationship with our God. And by making that choice, it enhances life beyond anything I can really fully describe. But to just say, it's certainly not boring and it's certainly not dull and very purposeful beyond anything, any work I've ever done or produced has done for me. Walking this walk with the Lord brings so much joy to my life every day. It gives me a perspective of who I am and where I need to stand in any situation. It gives me a perspective that's exciting.
That's exciting. It's always good I feel it's always good to have something to look forward to.
Yeah.
It gives us purpose and a direction.
Uh-huh.
Just like
Yeah.
I love the Appalachian Trail because it's a path.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, let's go from point A to point B and
Yeah.
let's see how that path goes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to expand on it a little bit, Melanie, a long distance hiker friend here in Angel Fire said to me yesterday, I'm talking to her about this current stuff that I'm getting into, prayer walking.
Oh, yeah.
Reflective walks. I'm also calling them reflective walks. And she's an avid long distance hiker here in the mountains of northern New Mexico. And I was saying, I think that it would be nice that if the hiking club would like for me to just offer some of these kind of hikes as well. And she thought about it for 2 minutes at the most. And she said, oh, that would be so refreshing. It would be so nice to get out of this push to get the highest, to get the most challenging hike under my belt, to hike at a faster pace, to all these measuring sticks humans throw at ourselves that can contaminate a beautiful long distance hike if you let it. And doing reflective walks or prayer walking is certainly an antidote to that. So I just want to throw that out, that we need these times to just leave space for our spiritual growth.
Absolutely. Yesterday, my husband and I, we went on a hike. We were planning to do a 5-mile hike.
Uh-huh.
And I told him right off the bat, I said, look, the flowers are blooming. I know it's July. We're in South Texas, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm near the Houston area. We're going on the Lone Star hiking trail. It's like 90% humidity and 85
Yes.
degrees. I said, we're doing a photography hike. I said, I am taking a picture of every single flower that I see.
Oh, what a blessing.
This is not going to be fast. And he's looking at his, his time as we're doing our hike. And he's like, that took us an hour to do a mile. And it's like, that's okay.
And it was a wonderful 1 hour.
It was exactly what I wanted to do. Just slow down, enjoy the blooming of the flowers, because a lot of people will not hike in July in Texas, like
Oh,
where
for
I'm
sure.
at, because it
Yes.
is very hot. It is very
Yes.
humid. You have to be very conscious about heat exhaustion and heat
You do,
stroke.
for sure.
But if you hydrate, right? We talked a lot about being
Yes.
dehydrated today.
Yeah.
But if you hydrate lots and make sure you're pre-hydrated, so what I mean by that is drink lots of water the day before, even the week
Yes.
before, right? Stay
Yes. Yes.
hydrated. And then just take your time and slow down and shorten your distance.
Yeah.
It's actually the
Yeah.
wildflowers around here are
Yeah.
very beautiful at this time of
Yeah.
year. So,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
just wanted to throw that out there. Yes, those
Yes.
slow paced,
Yeah.
reflective hikes where you
Yeah.
actually take the time to
Yeah.
enjoy the beauty
Yeah.
that's around you is so important for
It's
us.
so important. And another way to look at this in our human condition, to me, Melanie, is what I would want readers to get out of the book if they go for it is look for how you can detach from the culture that we all live in and attach instead to your spiritual growth. If you're on a journey of intentionality about that, you're going to smell the roses along the way. You're going to smell
Yes.
you're going to smell those roses. You're going to take time to go, if this is not about just only getting to the destination, this is
Mm-hmm.
about how we're getting to the destination.
Yeah. What advice would you give someone feeling stuck or unsure about taking the first step towards a big life goal? Ooh, that's a good
Yes.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I help clients hear their inner dialogue with themselves. I help them find that inner dialogue with themselves. And I think what is particularly intentional about my approach to work with clients is I help them hear the spirit within that they carry. We all have it. And then I challenge them to use the personal growth tools that God gave them. And we've talked about this a little bit, but I'll be more specific. Movement, one of the best things you can do when you're stuck and you don't know how to approach the next step of life, is move. Don't be sedentary. Move. Get into movement. It's one of the key pieces that God gave us to and that movement can be painting. It can be taking photos of nature. It can be a lot of things besides walking. Any kind of movement besides sitting and pondering is really helpful. Then, second, writing. Journaling what you're experiencing is another process tool, like movement, that helps you sort through things. And so it activates inner movement and gets you unstuck. If you write it down, yeah, somebody might read it, so it's tough if you're concerned about that, but about that privacy. But writing it down will help you a whole lot if with being stuck about how to approach what's next in life. And then third, I call it prayer walking. One of my favorite things to do is at nighttime when nobody else is outside walking. I have the great blessing to be able to do that in both the places I live, here in New Mexico and in Austin, Texas. I like to walk outdoors where I can see the stars and nobody else is out there and I can talk to God aloud. One of the best things I can do is take something I've been journaling about and then talk about it to God out loud as I walk. That's the premier thing that I have to offer is prayer walking.
Nice. Now, do you think, is there something about activating that voice and saying it out loud? I know I was in a coaching program several years ago, and so we would journal some things, but then we would also, part of the program was to actually vocalize it. So there's
Yes,
something, and you'll probably know more scientific stuff than I do. They said there's just something about speaking it that
yes,
helps our brains either process it or come to terms with it. I
yeah.
don't know. I'll let you
Yeah,
share
definitely.
your
I'm on
thoughts on.
that same track. You're hearing what I'm saying, but I'm also saying that the stuff that you're talking about is not necessarily, though it can be very emotional are very, in a different setting, very analytical and filled with provocative, probing thoughts and analytical thinking. It could be that kind of voice that you're using, but the voice I'm really talking about when I talk about prayer walking at night, I'm talking about letting your spirit have a voice. Letting your spirit have a voice. That's something we are very private about. It's hard to pray aloud. Very
Yes.
few people feel comfortable praying aloud. And so what we're talking about is praying aloud by yourself. So that means taking ownership for that spirit that is within you and the energy it has. And it also implies there's somebody listening.
Yes.
And so therefore, somebody listening could be God, and therefore you have set the stage to hear him because you're speaking aloud.
Nice.
And see, I think that's the other big block that we often have is there's no God because we can't hear him. And what I'm saying is prayer walking helps you hear better.
Nice. I like that. Thank you so much for sharing all that.
Uh-huh.
I love the idea of prayer walking and intentional walking
Yes, yes.
and sharing those thoughts and feelings while you're walking. Yeah.
And sometimes what I really have enjoyed and I did it a lot on the Appalachian Trail, I love to sing. I love to sing hymns and praise music that really is meaningful to me. And so oftentimes I'll get started in my talks with the Lord by singing aloud to myself and the wildlife. And that gets me in the right mood to really be receptive. Yeah.
Awesome. Let's move on to Grandma Gatewood.
Oh, I
Um,
love Grandma Gatewood.
yeah. So she's a powerful figure in hiking history. What about
Yes,
her story speaks to you the most? What do you want to share about Grandma Gatewood?
I love sharing about Grandma Gatewood. But Grandma
Yeah.
Gatewood, see, when I started hiking, reading all those books before I even started hiking the trail in the late 1990s, she was really not very well known. There weren't
Right.
very many long distance female backpackers either, certainly compared to today. There was a big surge that she created by hiking the entire Appalachian Trail and finished it the first time in the early 1960s. And she caused the Congress to bring about, because she got the citizenry so interested in the Appalachian Trail, that it forced Congress to pass a law to protect the Appalachian Trail. And it
Wow.
was the first long distance trail we have here in the United States. So she made all of that happen, but she did it not because she wanted any notoriety. She did it because they found out about her. There's a great story about that. The Today Show on one of the major channels, Gary Moore, the Today Show, they found out about her through word of mouth and sent a news reporter out to find her on the trail when she was hiking it the first time. And they wanted to know all about her backstory, like you've been asking me. And she would tell them nothing. She would tell them nothing. I'm just out here because it feels good, basically, was what she said. And then she forced her 11 children to also not share. So my enjoyment of her as a mentor in what I was doing was really based on word of mouth. I knew she did it, but there was no real backstory about it on purpose. And that was the facts until what, 8 years ago, maybe, Ben Montgomery, a distant relative of Emma Gatewood, he talked the family into releasing her story.
Wow.
And that's
Yeah.
how her story was published in Grandma Gatewood's Walk about 8 years ago. And so since then, people are hearing the whole story, which is a fantastic book. You must read Grandma Gatewood's Walk. It's a great book. And what you will find is someone like me, actually, in that she was a woman of faith. And that got her through some really tough times in her life and kept her focused on moving forward in a way that was meaningful, not about herself, but about the power of how her faith in the Lord kept her moving forward with meaning in her life and purpose in her life. So I'm really proud to share with anybody who wants to take on my book on I got Ben Montgomery to allow me to place one of her poems in my book. And the devotional that the poem is set in is called The Outcast, because she has a very sordid early life that was very violent. And she didn't want people to know about that. She didn't want people to focus on that.
I love
So
that she kept the mystery and the intrigue in it,
yeah,
and all that was shared later,
I think
after her passing.
yeah,
Yeah.
The Reward of Nature is the name of the poem that is hers in the book. And I call her an outcast because she didn't fit into the culture of the in 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s. She didn't fit into the culture of the backpacker. The female backpacker is the liberated woman. She didn't fit that.
Right.
And she didn't care she didn't fit that.
Yeah.
She knew where she was coming from. So Grandma Gatewood is definitely one of my role models that I really cherish. Another one is Jennifer Farr Davis.
Who's that? Tell me about her.
Jennifer Farr Davis, and this is a theme I have in the book, is I find some of my mentors that I found over the decades, and I write a devotional about what they meant to me. At college age, Jennifer Farr Davis, out of North Carolina, set the record in the speed hiking of the Appalachian Trail. She carried the fastest record of all men and women.
Oh, wow.
And that's what brought her to notoriety. And she held it for several years. Age 21, she got it. And that was before there was all this industry of support systems for a long distance hiker to earn a title like that. She did it very primitively. But the thing that really stood out to me about Jennifer Farr Davis was her faith. And just kind of like Grandma Gatewood, she said, and I'm quoting her here, she wrote this in her book, Camino Dissa, Adventures on the Appalachian Trail. That's her book title. She wrote this quote from her journaling. I looked up toward the rafters and started talking to God. God, I said, sniffling, I'm scared. I don't know why I'm out here. When I started, I was so strong and healthy and confident, but now I feel weak. I feel broken. There is so much hurt and heartache out here. I don't know why I wanted to do this alone. That was stupid. At one point, I felt like you wanted me here, you being God, like you were calling me on the trail. But why would you make me go through all this? There is never any doubt in my mind that God hears my prayers. Lying in the darkness, I never felt comforted. I continued to feel scared and alone, and I slept in fits of fear. But in the morning, things were different. I felt like God had designed this moment just for me. He was communicating to me through the sunrise. He was talking. No, he was singing to me with colors. I was like being woken up with a lullaby. The pink said, I am here. The orange said, I am going with you. And the bright gold said, trust in me. That's a quote from her journal.
Oh, I love it. That's so beautiful. One of my favorite things, people would ask me what my favorite color is, and I would tell them either sunrise or sunset.
Yes. And that quote from Jennifer Farr Davis is in the devotional called Asking, meaning asking God for what you need. It's all about asking.
What does adventure look like for you now, post AT? What do you have in your sights? I know your book is a big part of your life, but what else is going on?
The book is a big part of my life. Keeping it at a pace of not falling victim to all of these marketing calls that I get constantly that really try to, they're doing their job, but they really, at my age of 75, they can really sidetrack me in terms of not doing what I feel called to do, but instead fulfilling a new marketing expensive contract. Not doing that, but what I am doing is I'm doing these little prayer walks with people that I have community with here in New Mexico and also in Texas. I'm doing some book presentations and I'm really focused on the audio book because I believe with the new release of the audio book just this month, that it's going to capture more outdoor enthusiasts than any other format because so many outdoor enthusiasts really enjoy having something to listen to while they're gardening or doing a long distance hike or some other outdoor activity. So I'm excited about that, but mostly I'm just trying to live my life in a very personable, first person contact kind of way.
Nice. What do you most love about living in Austin and then spending summers in Angel Fire, New Mexico?
I enjoy the vast expanse of God's nature and its splendor that I get to see in these two very different locations. It's a beautiful thing to enjoy the mountains of New Mexico, and the wildlife is just so abundant this year in particular, the elk herds and the chipmunks and just wildlife that I don't get to see, forests that I don't get to see. I think of the Austin, Texas trees as like broccoli, and they don't really have much height to them and or shape to them. They're beautiful in a different way, but there's nothing more sprawling than a live oak tree, and that's beautiful in its own way. But yeah, I love the cathedral forests here, the pine tree and some deciduous, but mostly it's pine forest. So I just enjoy the variety of nature in the two locations, and that's a lovely way to live.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah, you get kind of you're a snowbird without having to experience the snow, right? Because you
Yes.
go,
Yeah.
yeah. Now, do you have any favorite trails or hiking spots in Texas and in New Mexico?
I thought that was a good question too. Melanie, you evoked an awareness I hadn't been in touch with before. I don't have any real good trails to share with you and say this is a great trail you ought to hike. And I guess it's because I'm always interested in a new trail. What I really enjoy is what I haven't hiked. And so now I'm involved with a hiking club here in New Mexico. And what I love is talking about what hikes have you been on that I haven't been on? That's
Um,
exciting to me. That's interesting to me.
yeah, it's like, tell me about that trail.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Nice. Now, how do you continue to stay connected with nature in your everyday life? You mentioned the prayer walks. You may or may not be able to do that every day. Do you incorporate nature into your daily life somehow?
Yes, I do. I've got a really great sidekick. My dog loves to hike, and that's been a huge blessing. And he's going to pretty quickly let me know if I've been sitting too long. He's
Oh,
ready.
yeah.
He's ready to go, and he loves to be off leash. And so, fortunately, we're in a place that I can get out into hiking trails that he can go unleashed, and he's got me totally connected with wherever he's smelling something that is interesting, and I'm watching over him and he's watching over me. And
Nice.
yeah, I get a
Nice.
chance to do that regularly,
Yeah. I imagine
several
at
times a week.
yeah, I imagine at Angel Fire you can just walk out your front door
Yes.
and yeah, and just
Yeah.
go straight from there. Yeah.
We really are blessed to have that. And I live on the outskirts of Austin, in a more rural area. And so I'm blessed to have this space that I don't have any street lights on my road
Oh,
or
nice.
in my house, and I'm able to get out and at night and hike. And and there's some good, Austin's got a lot of trails. So I enjoy those too. If I can't get away, then I'll hike the same old because I got to. Yeah.
Yes. Now, you've mentioned getting outside at night and doing your walks at night. Are you ever afraid at night?
I'm not. I've had some situations happen, but I don't I feel very well prepared and ready and alert to what's going on around me. I mean, I don't have on an audiobook running and my hearing is impaired. I'm listening to what's going on around me. I'm tuned into the world around me. Doing prayer walking at night, I'm still tuned into what's going on around me. And I think that's the best safety feature you can have. I have recently at my advanced age now, I started carrying one of those siren.
Oh yeah, like a noisemaker. Yeah.
Yeah, noisemaker. I
Yeah.
recently put that on my day pack. So I'm well equipped with a lot of things, even in terms of just my own physical emergency. And I always keep my cell phone on me. And so I've got a lot of ways that the Girl Scout in me comes out uh,
That's
full
good.
force to just think ahead about being prepared for
Yes.
emergencies. And I don't believe in living in fear. I believe in living in my faith. And that doesn't mean that I need to make stupid decisions, but I don't believe in living in fear.
Good for you. Good for you. And I love that you shared that the whole situational awareness, right? Just being aware of
Yes.
your surroundings and
Yeah.
having a bit of a plan if things do
Yes.
go awry. Like you have your noisemaker, you have your
Yeah.
cell phone charged, those
Mm-hmm.
types of things.
Yeah. Got my dog with me, and he's pretty helpful too.
I bet. I bet he is. Very cool. All right. Now let's move on to reflection and wisdom. So
Okay.
if you could go back and give your younger self advice before starting the AT, what would it be? And younger self, you were 47 when you started the
Yes.
AT, right? So let's
Yeah.
go back to when you were 47. What advice would you give yourself before you started the AT?
I just want to remind you that I started all this just being a good camper, but I was not a hiker. I was not even, I had a chronic illness growing up. And so I never even was in PE class.
Oh,
So I
wow.
was
Okay.
never a sports person, never an athlete. I never had that background. I love camping. I love the outdoors. And I enjoyed just being that was a big piece of my free time in life up to this age of 47. I just want to encourage people to get outdoors. Don't get stuck in front of a computer screen. Get outdoors. The sooner you do that, the better. So that's my one message. And my other message is even more important. Though I grew up in a Christian home and faith was talked about and prayer happened regularly, and we were church goers, we got in a church fellowship, I never really knew the Bible. I didn't ever study in depth the Word, God's Word. And that's my best thing to tell people that I wish I had done sooner in life. I really didn't even start studying the Bible until I finished hiking the trail. I kept telling myself, oh, I'm doing these daily devotionals, and that means I read some scripture in each time I read a devotional and think through what the devotional says. So I'm doing Bible study. That's not Bible study. And when you do Bible study and you really dig in deep to the Word and how the Old Testament and New Testament fit together into a great story about life, that's Bible study. And so I just encourage people to know the Word, know who God is through the Word. That's going to make a difference in your life. The earlier you start on that, I'm working on my grandchildren right now, just encouraging them to do that because I know it's going to be a good platform for them.
Beautiful. So that's the advice that you would give your younger self is to
Yes, start
yes,
early.
start early.
Earlier on that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think everybody has their journey too, right? At that time, you
Yeah,
thought you were doing well.
I did that. I
Yeah.
did. And I certainly made use of what I was doing.
Yeah.
But I'm enjoying a lot of fun things now that are related to Bible study and just understanding of how the Lord's talking to me through nature. I have much more awareness of the attributes of who God is through nature because I'm Bible studying.
Gotcha. What do you think the most surprising lessons on the trail taught you? Do you feel like we've talked about that already?
I feel like we talked about it in many avenues.
Okay.
I never saw, just again, because it's such an important theme, I never saw this spiritual pilgrimage concept
Gotcha.
till the very end. Let me just share one kind of closing statement here. As it got close to the end of the 20 trips to complete the 2,000 miles of the trail, it became very apparent to me that the Lord was already saying to me, Beth, I got you through a lot of stuff. Together, you have really, your life has really transformed and has so much peace and joy and meaning that it is not fair for you to keep that to yourself. That is not fair. You have to share this with people. And this was even before the argument about the book getting written. This was like, Beth, you have to share it the next hiking trip. You have to start talking to people that are strangers on the trail that come down the trail towards you. You have to start telling them that, yeah, they're looking at an old woman who has hiked 2,000 miles and you did not do it on your own physical strength and stamina. Oh, that's true, Beth. Now do something about it. And I'd say, but I don't know how. I don't know how to do that. How can I get a conversation like that started with a stranger about how it was us, you and me, God, doing this? And so slowly I got the signal that how I could do it is I just needed a little prop. I needed something to get the conversation started. So I went out to Hobby Lobby and I found these little balsa wood doves about an inch square, beautiful doves. And I knew I could say, I finished the trail and I didn't do it on my own, stranger. And now that we're finished talking about the weather and what you saw behind you and what I have behind me that you want to know about, I want you to know I'm about to finish this trail and I did it because I trusted the Lord to be with me, especially in the times that I was scared and I was way outside my comfort zone. So I want you to understand that's how I did it. That's how I changed my life and how I accomplished 2,000 miles. It wasn't Beth's ability alone. And so here for you, and I would have the stranger give me their hand. I'd hand the dove to the stranger and say, peace be with you. The peace that surpasses all human understanding be with you.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And that was
Yeah.
transformative to have that conversation with strangers. And I do that even today when I do a book presentation. I give the dove out.
I know you've probably said this at the beginning, but we've talked about so many things. How
Yeah.
long did it take you to finish? How many years was that to finish the
Well,
whole
it
trail?
was from 1997
Yeah.
to 2015. There
Okay.
were a couple of years in there that I did not hike
Okay.
because of family things going on. But then there were some years that I actually hiked 2 times.
Okay. So
So,
overall,
but
about
overall, it took about 25 years.
wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
that really does
Yeah.
make for quite a life story.
Yeah. That's incredible. All righty. Let's finish up. We're going to do rapid fire. So some
Okay.
rapid fire questions just for fun.
Yeah.
And all right, first question is trail foods you never want to eat again.
Almost any of the retail dehydrated foods, I don't like them. I learned how to dehydrate my own foods,
Yeah,
and the comparison is just horrific. So I don't
right.
like the retail stuff.
Okay, so then what's your favorite then? So what favorite combination have you put together of your own dehydrated food?
I like to take like soups that I enjoy, homemade soups, and
Oh yeah.
dehydrate them and
Okay.
then reconstitute them, hydrate them on the trail, and enjoy
Nice.
soups that I really love the way they taste and their flavor of them. It's just one to describe. I've gotten into doing a lot of fruits and nuts making my own, the fruit roll up kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
I enjoy those tremendously.
Oh, nice.
Those are,
And it's
yeah,
so much better for you because what ingredients are going
yes,
into it. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Just
Yeah,
so
and you
much
can
better
add
for
all
you.
kinds of stuff that your body really needs.
Yes. Yeah.
And just the base of it is fruit.
Nice.
Applesauce or bananas or a combination of a lot of things. So those are the two that come to my mind the quickest, is just things like that. I'll take even my own dehydrated eggs. I like that better than the stuff I can get retail.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Good. Do you prefer coffee or tea on the trail?
Tea. I'm a big tea drinker. I love sleepy time tea at the end of the day.
Me too. I love sleepy time tea. Yes. What is your favorite piece of gear that you couldn't live without?
I have a lifelong history of being easily dehydrated.
Okay.
So I have to really take care of my hydration issues. That's why we've talked about hydration quite a bit.
For sure.
So I really love my really good hydration system. I trust it. I know how much water I need, and I always like to have, if I'm going to have extra pounds to carry, those pounds are going to be water.
What is your system? What do you?
I use the company's called Platypus.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've seen
That's
those.
my favorite
Yeah,
one.
yeah. Good. What's your favorite trail town stop along the Appalachian Trail? Did you have a favorite
I
spot?
do. It's still Damascus, Virginia. It's where
Okay.
it started.
Yeah.
And actually, right after I published the book, Damascus Trail Days, it's the major annual festival on the Appalachian Trail every May.
Okay.
And they have a book author tent, and they had me present my book at their festival
Oh, nice.
in 2023. So they're really good trail fun. Damascus got hit really hard with that hurricane flooding in the Asheville in Damascus area a year ago.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember
The
something. Yeah.
Appalachian Mountains getting flooded, but yeah, Damascus was hit hard. But they're back and pulled together, and there's so many great things about the town of Damascus for me.
Nice. Do you prefer sunrise hike or a sunset campfire?
I like the sunset campfires.
Sunset campfires. How about socks, wool or synthetic?
I am into the synthetic sock, but only if I have toe socks on underneath it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Toe
I like.
socks really work for me. I don't have
Do
any
they?
trouble with blisters as long
Nice,
as I've got my toe socks.
nice. Do you have the very thin toe socks?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I have a set of those too. I like them a lot. What book would you always recommend?
Of course, Grandma Gatewood's book
Oh
and,
yes,
and mine.
and yours. Of course. I love it. In one word to describe your AT experience.
God's grace.
How about describe Grandma Gatewood in one sentence?
Grandma Gatewood was a faith-filled pilgrim on her pilgrimage.
Yes. And if you had to pick one trail to hike for the rest of your life, which would it be?
Guess what? It would be the Appalachian Trail. I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Would you? Yeah, that's
I
great.
would. Yeah.
I love it. Very nice. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I appreciate you taking the time. Is there anything else that you want to add that we didn't cover, or anything that you want to jump back to and clarify? Or
Melanie, you've done such a thorough job in preparing for this conversation, and I've really enjoyed getting to know you a little bit, and I have nothing else that I can add. You've just evoked everything I wanted to be sure I got said. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thanks for hiking along with me today on the Just Hike podcast, where we explore the trails, tackle mindset shifts, and take steps towards the life you want, one adventure at a time. If today's episode inspired you, be sure to follow, rate, and review the show. It really helps others find our growing trail-loving community. And if you want more, please subscribe to the newsletter at justhike.com so you can stay in the loop. You'll be the first to know about upcoming Sidewalk to Summit training plan, my book release, new gear, and more. And of course, follow us on social at Just Hike to get your daily dose of trail tips, hiking inspiration, and movement motivation. Until next time, get outside, stay strong, and just hike. See you on the trail.